Welcome to The Arts Are the Answer, a co-production of the Arts Council for Monterey County and Access Monterey Peninsula. I'm Steve Elvey, executive producer for AMP.
And I'm Paulette Lynch, executive director of the Arts Council for Monterey County. We are so excited about this new program. Each month, we bring you in-depth interviews, event highlights, and insider info on the arts in our beautiful region. But this is your show. Get involved. We welcome sponsors, volunteers, and guests. Visit us at artsformc.org/answer to find out more.
In this next half hour, we're going to introduce you to the artists, organizers, and others who are making wonderful things happen in our region through the arts. We have with us the artist Belle Yang, who will be interviewed by the Monterey County Weekly's Walter Ryce, Michael Duffy of Artist Open Studios Tour, Monterey Symphony's Michelle Lange, and much, much more.
It all starts right now. Welcome, Michael Duffy. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's so great to have you here. Can you please tell us about the format for the Artist Studio Tour? What happens first, and then how does it go from there?
The Monterey County Artist Studio Tour has a gala kickoff on, and then that's on the Friday, and then on the weekend, which is a Saturday and a Sunday, then people can go out and take a look at the different artist studios.
And my understanding is that that's for free. People can take their catalog, decide where to go, and they can just go for free. Is that right, Stu?
The brochure map is an insert in the Monterey County Weekly. And so, yes, it's totally free.
One thing I love about that insert, each little artist's representational photo image of what their work is so beautiful. But pictured all together, it's magnificent. There's other studio tours like this in other regions of the country, I know, and even nearby in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo. How did we get started in Monterey County? You were at the beginning, weren't you?
Yes. Consuela Underwood, who was the Cultural Council director, which is before the Arts Council.
Before my time.
She phoned and asked me to come in, and I assumed that the supervisors of Monterey County had noticed that Santa Cruz County had a very successful open studio, and so they wanted, of course, the Cultural Council to do an open studio, but Consuela Underwood, I don't think really wanted to do that so much. So she talked me into getting Artist Equity, which is an organization that I was vice president of at that time, and to do the studio tour. She just didn't have the staff to do it.
But what about the perspective? I'm so curious about the perspective of the artists themselves. They have to work so hard, and how do they feel when we all kind of descend on their private spaces?
Being an artist is a very isolating process. I mean, you just got to be in your studio doing your work. You really can't have that much contact with the outside world while you're doing it. So it's actually quite nice to be able to actually have people come to see your artwork and to be able to really relate to them and let them know what you're really trying to say. If you look at a piece of art, you may get some idea of where the artist was coming from, but if you can actually talk to the artist and see their techniques, then you might be able to learn a lot more about them.
Talk about a few of the artists that maybe really have stood out for you over the last few years that we are especially fortunate to have in the group.
Well, for one of our really fine artists who has a wonderful palette is Peggy Olson, and she's just one of those super talented individuals, and we're so lucky to have her around. And she had stopped doing the studio tour for a little while, and then she started going back, and she's last year she said that she had her best year ever.
Do you have new plans, or does Artist Equity have new plans? How's that going?
Artist Equity has started doing a joint project with the Carmel Crossroads.
Oh, wonderful.
We've already had one big show there, and when I walked into that show, I was just awestruck at how beautiful my artists that I know, how beautiful their work looked in this professional space.
Yeah.
It was really nice. Now, what's going to happen is there's a cooperation between, now, naturally, during this period, there is a low rental of commercial spaces. So they need people in there. So one of the ways they're going to do it is we're going to have shows every weekend for November and December.
We really appreciate your leadership, Michael. I know it's a lot of work to keep these things going, but you can see the vitality that our artists bring to our neighborhoods, to the economy, to everything that we hold dear is really inestimable. And I really, really value your wonderful leadership in making all this work. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, I'm Walter Ryce with the Monterey County Weekly, and I'm here with a special guest, Belle Yang, artist and writer. Can you talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, and your schooling?
Well, I was born on the island of Taiwan in 1960, and my father was a refugee from the mainland. He met my father on the island, and later on we moved to Japan. And after he finished his studies, we came to the United States. I was 7 years old.
And when you and your family first came to the States, where did you first settle?
We were in San Francisco because my father had just enough money to bring the three of us to San Francisco. He had been accepted in Texas and New York, but didn't have the airfare, so we ended up in San Francisco at San Francisco State was where he was studying.
In 1971, as you say, you all moved to the Carmel?
We came to Carmel in 71, and my father was working for a place called the China Art Center, which still exists, and then he decided to open his own business. I was a lonely kid, no friends. We moved here in May, so school ended pretty rapidly. And across the street lived an artist. Her name was Nancy Johnson. And she lived alone. She had a green VW Bug. And she invited me to go with her for 3 days during the week to her various classes in outdoor painting, watercolor, and also sketching. So I tagged along with her every morning. I'd walk across the street and ride with her to various places like Point Lobos and Cannery Row before it became this tourist mecca. It was really just the broken down canneries at that time with newspapers and old rusted cans everywhere. So we painted all over the place, and that was my first real initiation into the artists and artist way of life.
What was your first sort of distinct move towards art and doing that as not just a profession but as a calling?
Well, I ended up at Art Center College of Design for 2 years, and I was studying advertising design. So I discovered that I could put words and images together, and it would be useful for both copywriting and creating imagery to go with a copy. I could put 2 and 2 plus 2 together and have it equal more than 4.
This might be a good time to sort of describe to people who maybe aren't familiar with your work about the process of your work, the medium. Can you talk about your paintings?
My paintings are done mostly in gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. It can be painted over so that you don't see what's below, but even so, the color below will somehow affect the top layer in its resonance or density. So I like using gouache, and that's something I picked up from Art Center because we were taught to become designers. And so I've just always loved using gouache. I also do a little bit of oil, large oils of lotuses. My work is at Hawk Fine Arts and at Winfield Gallery. Hawk Fine Arts is in Pacific Grove, and Chris Winfield's gallery is in Carmel. So now with the graphic novels, I use also black gouache and pigment markers, which are, as the name indicates, markers that are filled with black pigment. Because if you buy and use Sharpies, it's chemical. So if you draw with that in time, the Sharpie lines start to turn purple or blue. But with pigments, they don't change color because they're made from minerals. So those are my medium. My media is not that varied. Some people, do sculptures and printing, but I'm pretty much limited to those two. But I do expand in terms of the format of work.
Okay. What is the name of the exhibit at the Steinbeck Center?
It's Belle Yang, writer-artist or artist-writer. I can't remember.
How would you describe that exhibit?
It's definitely a retrospective, but it's what I love about that particular museum and the people's mission is to have a museum that's really engaging. It's not a snooty place where people go around with their, reading glasses and looking at things and comment. But it's a place where people can interact, and so children can go there and play with alphabet seeds and beads and make alphabet bracelets, because that's part of the story of Hannah Is My Name. They can put a pin to a big map of the world where their parents or grandparents or they themselves had immigrated from. And so also there's a big bulletin board where they can write their own stories and post that. So it's engaging for the adults to read and look, but the children can play. And I've always felt that my work encompasses a broad spectrum, a wide audience, because the market really wants you to be in a very small niche. And for me, as a friend said, to be categorized is to die, because you're just, pigeonholed and you can't really move about. But we're all expansive people. We have different interests. Yeah. And so for me, I get to move around from kids' books to adult books. And so you have the adult paintings from China, you have the adult illustrations, which children also like, and you have the children's illustrations from the children's books themselves. So it really is about a life's work and a retrospective. But that's such a highfalutin word.
Bill, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Walter. My pleasure.
We are so honored to be here in the studio with Michelle Lange, and she has a vast experience in fundraising and also in classical music. Michelle is currently the Director of Patron Engagement and Institutional Advancement for the Monterey Symphony.
Yes, that is correct, Steve.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Michelle, tell us how you ended up with the Monterey Symphony.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I'm a fundraiser by trade and started my fundraising career in healthcare in Minnesota. And I've always had a love of music, having been brought up playing several instruments, and I'll tell you about those in a moment. But I was looking to get away from the Minnesota cold and to get into some warmer climate, and saw a listing on the AFP website, Association of Fundraising Professionals, for the Director of Development position with the Monterey Symphony. And having lived in Monterey many moons ago in another life when I was in the Army, stationed at DLI, I thought, that might work. And so I tossed my hat in the ring for the position, and here I am, 6 years later, still working for the Monterey Symphony. And so my love of classical music, which I mentioned, I started playing the piano at the age of 6, And in grade school, started playing the flute. And then in junior high, the bassoon. So definitely the music and combining that with fundraising, it just really made the Monterey Symphony a perfect fit for me.
What's unique then about the Monterey Symphony?
Well, the Monterey Symphony is the only fully professional symphony orchestra that plays works of the classical repertoire in our region. We're actually, our official name is the Monterey County Symphony Association, but we shortened that a little bit so it wasn't quite such a mouthful for everybody. And we do represent all of Monterey County. There is a little confusion out there that I'd love to clear up, and that is that there is another symphony orchestra, the Monterey Bay Symphony. And their music, the genre that they perform, is popular music and patriotic music. And you will often see them at community-type events, such as the Air Show, where they just performed recently. And they have a following that loves their music at those events. They're complimentary concerts that they do. And so they have that type of music that they play. But we play classical music. We have a season that goes from October to May every year, and it's a much more robust season than the Bay Symphony. And again, like I said, two totally different genres of music that we perform.
All right, then let's talk about venues. What are your venues, and do they change?
We perform in two different venues. Our concert weekends open on Friday evening, and that will be at Sherwood Hall in Salinas. And Sherwood Hall is located at the Steinbeck Institute for Art and Culture. And so we open our weekend at 7:30 there on Friday evenings. And then Saturday, we will move over to Sunset Center in Carmel with a performance at 8 o'clock on Saturday. And then Sunday will be a 3 o'clock matinee again at Sunset Center in Carmel. And our opening concert weekend this year is October 19th through the 21st.
Now that I'm educated, I can ask this question. What symphonies will you be playing?
Each of our concerts this season is featuring our piano. So it's a season of piano this year. And there will be a piano concerti on each of the performances, as well as symphonies.
Okay. Now, do you have the same piano player for this entire time? Or?
No, we will have 7 different pianists that will be performing. Some of them are favorites of the Monterey Symphony. They've performed with us on several occasions. We open with John O'Connor, who's from Ireland, and I believe he has performed here 7 times. And he was a great friend of our late Director of Operations, Joan DeVisser, who this season is in her memory. And so John opens the season, and his protege, Heidi Howe, who lives in the Bay Area, will be performing with him. They'll be actually doing a double concerto. So that will be very, very wonderful to hear. And then in November, we have a young lady by the name of Tanya Gabrielian. She was a winner of the Carmel Music Society's piano competition a number of years ago. And then January will be Anna Petrova, also a winner of the Carmel Music Society's competition. And interestingly enough, she is now married to our February performer, Josu de Ceylon, who has been here previously. And then in March, we will feature Philippe Bianconi, who has also been here. April will be Jean-Louis Steuermann. And then we close the season with Joan DeVisser's best friend, Dubravka Tomcic, who has been here many times and is well loved by our patrons.
And not only well loved, but it sounds to me like these are well loved and internationally renowned names you're talking about.
They are all, yes, all international names. So coming from all over the world. So we try to bring as much talent as we can to the Monterey Symphony, and as diverse as possible. And so their styles will run the gamut, definitely. And so I think to really appreciate each and every one of them, you need to come for the entire season.
Let's talk about that then, though. What is the best way to get the most out of the Monterey Symphony as a patron and attending the symphonies?
Well, definitely becoming a subscriber, because then you are making a commitment to come to every single concert. I know that the trend nationally is that subscriptions have been declining, but we're hoping that we can turn that back around. Subscriptions are, of course, one of the lifebloods of an organization such as the Monterey Symphony, and so we would like to see that number stay steady or, of course, increase. If you can't commit to the full season, we have mini-series where you can pick 4 of the concerts to attend. And then, of course, single tickets. If you've never been, buy a single ticket and check it out, and we hope that you'll love it and want to come back. I'm sure you will, because it's just great music, live.
Live music. And how does that make you feel when you hear the orchestra strike up into a symphony?
Oh, I love it. I just, I kind of close my eyes sometimes and just lose myself in the music. But then, on the other hand, I actually like to watch each of the musicians performing. So, for example, if there is a part in the piece where the timpani is really being featured, I like to look at the timpanist. And then maybe the trombones, so I kind of like to watch them all as well, which I think makes it more engaging. And our musicians love what they do. They're very talented, and so it's fun to watch them as well.
I'm sure it is, and I will make a promise on the air that I am going to certainly attend at least one, and I'll look at that subscription. Now, how can I do that? Is there a way to do it online, perhaps?
Absolutely. You can go to MontereySymphony.org, and you can view the entire season, purchase subscriptions, or you can certainly call up our patron services manager, Michelle Edmondson, and she would be more than happy to help you on the phone. That's 646-8511. 646-8511, and she'd be more than happy to help you with that as well. So a couple of options, online or on the telephone.
Okay, and as you can see, we've got both the telephone number and that website on the screen now, so write those down. And Michelle, thank you so much for coming in and talking about this. It was such a pleasure. You're so articulate and so passionate about what you do. It's just great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your taking the time and inviting me to the show.
All right.
Hello, my name is Bernice House. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Arts Council. Today's episode is about Oaxacan arts and a cultural movement to preserve and sustain the called Movement Cultural de la Unión Indígena, or cultural movement of the indigenous community. The group was founded in 2005 by Triqui immigrants from the village of Oaxaca, Mexico. This movement is committed to both maintaining its community's unique culture and modes of artistic expression, while at the same time making them accessible to others. Their primary goal is to educate elementary school, middle school, and high school age children about their culture, language, tradition, and customs, and history. Their classes culminated in a presentation of work and community celebration in the city of Greenfield, California. And that's what will you see in this video. Enjoy.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. That's it.
Thank you so much for watching.
But remember, if you'd like to get involved, and we really want you to, go to
artsformc.org/answer.
Bye-bye.